Welcome back. I hope you did well on those questions. Now we are on our second module where we'll be covering the first part of our two parts of budget setup. Particularly, we will be covering the categories related to indirect and direct costs in the US DOE. First, we will go over direct costs, which include personnel, fringe benefits, travel, equipment, supplies, contractual, and other. In the personnel category, you will provide the position titles, percentage of each time that each position will expend on the grant, salary dollar amount, and one note is you will not include consultants' time. This will be included under contractual, not personnel. The next direct cost category is fringe benefits. It will build off of your personnel category because you will use the fringe rate for each position, the fringe dollar amount, which will be the calculation based on the position's salary amount and your fringe rate. And then another note is if the fringe benefits should be left blank if your institution treats direct fringe benefits as part of indirect costs. The next category is travel, which will include travel for all employees or participants only. Any travel resulting from consultants will be classified under contractual. And depending on your type of TRIO award, there might be limitations that apply to travel. Our next category of direct costs is equipment. And this will be based on a couple of different factors. One, which should be your institution's capitalization threshold, which should be defined in your policies and procedures. And your equipment will be classified based on the lesser of your institution's threshold or the $5,000 threshold found in the uniform guidance. It could be lower than $5,000 to be treated consistently in your institution, but it should never be, if your institution is higher than $5,000, we would use the $5,000 amount. Our next category is supplies, which are consumable, expendable personal property with cost below your capitalization threshold discussed in the previous slide. And obviously, as all direct costs, they should directly benefit the TRIO program. So you shouldn't be spending just because you have available budget to benefit other programs. It should benefit this specific TRIO program if it's going to be charged as supplies in your federal budget. Our next category is contractual. This includes any fees for consultants, whether it's travel or personnel costs, as mentioned in the prior slides. And it could be defined as any costs incurred as a result of a written binding agreement or contract. Our last category is kind of the catch-all, other. Other is any direct costs not being covered in any other category. For instance, it can include space rentals, communication costs, or printing costs. Next, we will move on to indirect costs. As the name might lead you to believe, indirect costs are costs categorized in their indirect cost category. These will be based on the indirect cost rate as defined in your GAN. That rate will be multiplied by your direct cost covered in the prior slides to determine your total indirect amount. And these does not include any training stipends or participant costs. Your indirect rate will be listed in your GAN, and it is either lesser of 8% or your institution's negotiated rate. Next, we will look at training stipends or participant costs. These are student costs or participant costs allowed for certain TRIO programs. If you're looking at your program, you could look at 34 CFR section 643 to 647 to see if your program allows it. As you can see, 643 is talent search, 644 is EOC, 645 includes upward bound math and science, and veterans upward bound. 647 is student support services, or 646, I'm sorry, and 647 is Ronald E. McNair. These will be covered further down the road in allowable and unallowable costs in a separate module. So some common challenges we have here at our organization that you might have is translating these categories into your institution's chart of accounts. So one thing we found is your institution should have regular meetings with the accounting department to come up with a bridge report that translates your institution's accounts to the categories in your GAN budget. Another problem we have is we run here as a July 1 through June 30th fiscal year. So our accounting software is based on that fiscal year. And the federal budget for these TRIO programs is September through August 31st. So we have to use a bridge report to count for the different fiscal years. And then also another thing is to take an effect in your application and your GAN budget is your institution probably has limited resources available for support. I don't mean in support like accounting and that. I mean, if you are budgeting for non-federal funds in your GAN, you will be obligated for that. So it's important that as part of your institution's budgetary process, you're working with those departments to make sure that that's included and you're not obligating for funds that haven't been designated for this, or you could come over, into trouble because your institution won't have the funds available and you have already obligated on a federal budget. I want to thank you again for going over this Module 2 here at Cuyahoga Community College. If you have any questions, please contact Michelle Knox at the email address on this slide. Again, there will be some questions related to this module. After the questions, we will be back to cover the next module, which will cover the second part of this. I look forward to talking to you again, and please complete the questions, and I'll see you at the next module.